Developers, the wizards that shape your company like nobody else. Their code helps build your products, develop systems, and keeps your entire technology infrastructure from falling apart. But hiring the right developers is a tricky task. You receive a lot of applications, but you only want the best. So how do you identify the best developers without spending a lot of valuable time on the wrong candidates? Introducing HackerEarth's technical recruitment software, a platform that helps you hire the best developers by using online tests to assess your applicants. Here's how it works. With HackerEarth, you can invite candidates to remotely appear for customized coding tests for any technical role. And once they take your tests, you can access detailed performance reports to decide who makes it through to the next rounds. Auto-generate highly customized tests for any technical role, even if you're not a developer yourself. Access our library of more than 15,000 inbuilt questions, or add and use your own. With over 35 programming languages supported, you can receive submissions in the language of your choice. The system magically evaluates the code submissions based on multiple parameters. And you get detailed reports on each candidate's performance. Copying or using any unfair means on a test is impossible, thanks to our proctoring measures and plagiarism detection techniques. HackerEarth helps you optimize your tech hiring process by scaling your hiring efforts, improving your accuracy, and reducing your time to hire. Tech recruiters use HackerEarth for a variety of requirements: identifying the right candidates during lateral hiring, scaling their university recruitment efforts, and aiding workplace diversity through blind hiring. More than 500 companies globally use HackerEarth to assess developers. Now, it's your turn to transform your hiring process. Register for a free trial today and try HackerEarth now.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sachin from HackerEarth, and welcome to the webinar on why human intelligence needs to lead artificial intelligence. In today's webinar, we have Lou, who's an HR thought leader and the co-founder and CEO of Adler Group. He'll be talking about the topic and sharing some interesting insights. Before we start the discussion, a quick introduction about Lou. Lou is the CEO and founder of performance-based hiring learning systems, a consulting and training firm helping companies around the world improve quality of hire. Lou is the author of the Amazon top 10 bestseller books like Hire with Your Head, The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired, and Lyndas.com performance-based hiring video training program. He's also one of the top bloggers on LinkedIn's influencer program, writing about the latest trends in hiring, employment, and recruiting. His articles, quotes, and research can now be found in Inc. Magazine, Business Insider, Bloomberg, SHRM, and the Wall Street Journal. The company's new mobile-ready learning platform, The Hiring Machine, provides instant access to all of the tools needed to hire and find and hire outstanding talent. So really excited to have Lou on the webinar today. But before I hand over the webinar to Lou, there's a very quick presentation that I would like to show you and talk a little bit about what does HackerEarth do and what can you do with the product that we have. So yeah, I'm Sachin, and HackerEarth is an enterprise product company that helps businesses in their innovation management and technical recruitment needs. Till date, we have conducted more than 1,000 different hackathons that help companies in crowdsourcing and innovation management. We have assessed more than 1 million candidates through our technical assessment platform and have a community of 2 million plus developers all across the globe. So there are different solutions that we provide to enterprises, but today's discussion is more around HackerEarth Recruit, our technical screening product. So if you look at the technical recruiting workflow, it looks like this. And there are 4 stages. The first stage is sourcing, where recruiters use various channels to source candidates. The second stage is screening. Essentially, resume-based screening of keywords is done to identify candidates who could be suitable for taking further in the interviewing process. The third stage is interviewing itself, where multiple technical interviews take place through different interview panels. And then finally, the hiring and onboarding process of a candidate. Where HackerEarth Recruits comes in handy is in these two stages. If you look at screening itself as a process, there are various issues that one can see. First of all, screening itself is difficult to scale. Uh, Typical hiring ratios vary anything between 20 to 30 is to 1. So what I mean by that is to make one hire, you have to go through 20 to 30 different candidates. Now imagine if you've got to close 100 different positions in a year, we're talking about a significant talent pipeline that we have to create and then screen. The process itself is time consuming. There are certain studies that say that recruiters can spend up to a day in identifying and screening candidates for a given role. Again, imagine if you're hiring for 40, 50 different roles, you're really slowing yourself down with the time consuming process of screening. And this problem compounds particularly in technical recruiting because it's difficult. The keywords and the signals that you have available from traditional sources may not be applicable in case of technical recruiting. And the third is, if you do not have sufficient background on technical recruiting, your screening it can be inaccurate, and that obviously affects the rest of the hiring funnel. If you look at the interviewing stage, of course, conducting multiple interviews in technical hiring, these could be up to 4 to 5 different interviews, is time consuming, and the cost of a false positive is significantly high. So what I mean by that is, if you end up interviewing a candidate who wasn't really fit for the job and could have been eliminated in the screening process itself, then that, going through those interviews is obviously quite costly because of the developer hours that would be spent in interviewing irrelevant candidates. Where HackerEarth helps is that HackerEarth is a technical recruiting platform that allows you to assess developers through coding challenges and conducting remote code pairing interviews. So you could administer coding tests even before candidates come into your interviewing process to identify the candidates which are relevant for the job. And then even before you call them for an in-person interview, you could use the code pairing platform to conduct remote technical interviews. The process flow is fairly straightforward. The platform allows you to automatically create tests for different tech roles within 4 clicks. So just with 4 clicks, you can create a test that is suitable for the role. You invite candidates to take up these assessments remotely, so candidates don't need to come down to your office. They can take the test from their home at their own convenience. Once the candidate has taken up the test, you could access detailed reports and shortlist the best candidates. All of these things can be done just by a technical recruiter. Now imagine, instead of showing just a resume to your hiring manager, you are providing them a lot more signals about the candidate's competency and the ability to prove themselves on the job once they come in. And then, of course, if the interviewer wants to proceed with the candidate, before you fly them down or get them over to your office, you can conduct a remote interview using our remote interviewing platform. Quick pointers around why HackerEarth. We have a question library of 15,000 different questions across 100 different topics that can be used for creating these tests. The remote proctoring capability is built into the platform, so you can ensure that candidates are not using unfair means to take up these tests. The entire testing process is automated, online, on the cloud, and is delivered seamlessly. As recruiters and hiring managers, you get detailed reports and analytics for all the tests that are taken up by the candidates. And of course, because it's online, you can conduct a test from anywhere. These are some of the customers that we work with. And that brings an end to my very quick presentation. Now, without wasting any more time, I'll be handing over the presentation to Mr. Lou to take the rest of the session forward.
Hey, hi everybody. This is Lou Adler. I assume you're going to make me the presenter, which I think you have. I will show my screen. I will show it. I think you are seeing it. Let me make this a presentation and we'll go from there. And if somebody can just tell me that they can see it, we'll be in good shape. And mine's going to be a lot different than Sachin's, but what I want to do is take a totally different perspective. So let me make sure that if somebody can put in the questions area, although this is an answer to a question, if you can see my screen, say I can see your screen, Lou, or you don't put it, you just say yes would be good. I just want to make sure we make this a bit interactive here. So I want to kind of take a different perspective on hiring. And I'm going to say it's probably from the hiring manager's perspective and the recruiter's perspective. I haven't seen a yes yet. So has anybody typed in a yes answer or maybe I'll show
Yes,
all?
so we have multiple people confirming that they can see your screen.
Okay,
So
we're
you can
good.
go ahead.
Good. Thank you very much. So I talk to recruiters and hiring managers everywhere around the world. And as I talk to them, and I've been talking to them for 40 years. I've been doing this for a long period of time. Everybody wants to get better. And oh, I want to be 10% better. I want to be 20% better. Well, I'm going to contend getting 20% better is the efficiency goal, just doing the same stuff faster. I want to get 100% better. And I'm going to contend if you want to hire better people, I don't care if they're software developers or manufacturing managers or company presidents, you got to think differently about the whole process. And that's what I want to do today. So I want to just show you this curve here, which I think kind of summarizes the conundrum that we face here. Everybody has, and you look at a job posting, it's got a dozen skills on it. And I'm going to make the contention when you actually think about the best hires, they have a few of the critical skills, but they probably have a different mix of skills. So if the x-axis is how much skills they've got, and the y-axis is ability to do the work and they're hireable, you kind of change the dimension of what you're looking at. So I'm saying, hey, let's rethink hiring as what is that ideal mix of skills and competencies and interests that demonstrate, hey, this is a good software developer or a good marketing manager or a good sales rep that will deliver the results. The candidate is hireable, and once they get in the job, they actually perform at peak levels and they stay with the company. I have Siri talking back to me now, so if you hear a woman in the background, that is Siri, who I can't seem to, and I wish I hadn't mentioned her name because she'll probably start talking to me. So there'll be two presenters on this course or this webcast. So that's where I want to go is how do we find that ideal mix of skills? And I also want to relate this to HackerEarth. So we'll kind of, and I'm not going to do it totally directly, but I think you'll see where we're going here. So let me make the statement is I believe in a process called performance-based hiring, and I'll give you a quick overview of that, plus clever AI, plus a phone screen is the difference maker. I want to get down to 2 or 3 or 4 candidates whom the hiring manager will see, hire one of those people. And that's what I want to kind of show you how we're going to get there. So here, I talk to hiring managers all the time. Talk to actually a bunch of them in Florida this morning, and real early, I'm in Southern California, real early this morning, I talked to somebody who represents 25 hiring managers in London. And this is a common problem. We write job descriptions that define skills and experiences. We then get a recruiter on the phone and screens that person based on compensation, title, location, interest, and the candidate says, yes, I want to go forward. And then hiring managers meet these people and they make a judgment based on first impression. And they consider a positive on all 3 of those things as a great candidate. Yet when you think about a person whom is hired 3-6 months later, and you say, what is a great hire? Well, it's that they do the work successfully. They don't make excuses. They get results. They work well with the team. They fit with the culture. They make things happen properly. And they get their work done on time. They can manage projects, manage people, manage their team, and develop the team. And when you look at it, most managers say, yep, the stuff on the right is a great hire. But I train hiring managers around the world, and I show them this 2 chart, and I ask them this question. I'm going to ask you this question, which I'd like you to put the answer in the questions panel. Who would you rather hire? Someone who's got all the skills, makes a great first impression, and someone who fits the salary and the budget, or someone who can do the job? Who would you rather hire? Someone on the left or someone on the right? Great candidate or great hire? I guess I probably can't see the answers to the questions because I'm not an organizer, but Arbaz or Sachin, you can tell me what they're saying. Who would you rather hire? A great candidate or somebody who can deliver the results? Go on, Sachin.
Yeah, so in my opinion, a great hire is someone who can just blow through the results.
Right, so it's on the right. And the 99% of the people, some people want both, but I say, no, let's just go with the great hire. So now the real question I have, though, is, and I'll make this rhetorical, and then I'll give you an answer based on what everyone says, is how well do the factors on the left predict the factors on the right? How well does great candidates turn out to be great hires? I think we've all met people who have all the skills, make a great first impression, but underperform. I think we've met people who have a different mix of skills, might get a little nervous in the interview, and might want to negotiate the job description or the salary after they learn the job, who turn out to be great hires. So, and you think about 100% of the people who get promoted, they can do the stuff on the right because the people believe they can be great hires, but they have obviously a different mix of skills because being promoted implies that they don't have the skill set. So when you think about hiring people on the right, you have to think differently. It is different than weeding out the weak. It's how do I attract the best? So I want to kind of go through that process and relate this to the HackerEarth, how I would handle and use HackerEarth so we can combine performance-based hiring with Clever Boolean and HackerEarth. So if you want to make a great person, I'm going to tell you have to have a great job. And if you've talked to more than 5 candidates in your life who are top tier, top 25% candidates, they always say, tell me about the job. And if you can't tell them about the job, specifically what this person needs to do, that person's going to opt out of the phone call. So when you start thinking about, hey, what is a great job? A great job is not a laundry list of skills, experience, and competencies. In my mind, a great job is 5 or 6 key performance objectives describing clearly what the person needs to do. This person's got to design a new UX system and it's got to get it done in 6 months. The person's got to open up a new sales territory. The person's got to manage a series of 6 accountants and develop a new international reporting system. That's the work. And if you as a recruiter don't know what that work is, you're just going to be a gatekeeper. So my first statement is, and I tell hiring managers, if your recruiter doesn't know the job at that depth of understanding of what is this person going to do every day as a series of KPOs, key performance objectives, you're missing the best people because that recruiter can't represent your job properly. Now, I also have to find people. The EVP is employee value proposition. So we call that a performance-based job description. That's the first step in the performance-based hiring process. Let's understand the work that needs to be done. Obviously, the person needs the skills to do the work, but the point is, if they can do that work, they have all the skills. But the person also has to make a decision. Do they want to do that work? Or they just want to get a job? So we're going to think about this whole thing from end to end. It starts with a great job. From a sourcing standpoint, I don't need hundreds of people. I just need 10 or 15 to start with. And I use HackerEarth. I would go to HackerEarth, I would probably take 2 or 3 skills. What are the critical skills that I need done? I then look at the candidate's resume and say, who of these people would be hireable? I call that small batch, high touch process. HackerEarth has got all the people you need to hire, but how do I use those candidates and get them hired? I'm going to kind of go through that a little bit here. Maybe I'll bring Sachin in and say, how would we actually do it? But I use this small batch, high touch process. I spend more time with fewer people, so my quality of hire is increased, my cost per hire is decreased. Then I got to interview these candidates. And I talked with someone the other day who's hiring 300 people. They're doubling the size of their company. I said, we're going to start with a phone screen. I, the recruiter, am going to conduct a phone screen and properly assess this person's ability to do this work and interest in doing this work and recruitability. The hiring manager, I'm also going to ask the hiring manager, you must interview this person on the phone before we invest time in inviting that person on site. Not only does it save time, but it also takes first impression bias off the table. So the simple phone screen is a powerful tool because that's the first time the candidate, the recruiter, and the hiring manager come together to make a decision. Does the candidate want to proceed? Does the hiring manager want to see the person? Can the recruiter recruit and convince top-tier talent that this is a worthy job? Then you got to negotiate the offer. And you'll never have enough money in your budget. The best people always want the most money, but the best people also want the best job. So long ago, I was a recruiter 5 or 6 years, and I realized I was losing good people. I could find good people. I couldn't close them. I could only close half because I want to close 95%. So I changed the rules. I'm going to live with a budget. What I'm going to offer these people is a better job. And I consistently offer the best career move. And frequently, that's not the best compensation package. But I convince people that they should make long-term decisions, not short-term decisions. Focus on where they're going, not where they've been. So that's the performance-based hiring process I recommend. My intelligent AI has a lot of human intelligence overlaid it. Again, I only need 12 to 15 prospects. I can find these people on HackerEarth. Then I look at their background and I say, who is performance qualified? If they can do 2 or 3 of the critical skills and they have what I call the achiever pattern. Achiever pattern indicates the person's in the top half, top quartile, top third of their peer group. And for a technical person, I would probably have 1 or 2 just for those sourcing folks here on the call who actually get into Boolean searching. I would probably take 1 or 2 critical skills, Ruby on Rails, Python, and .NET. If they've got that, they probably got everything. And that might not those might not be the ones, but I always ask the hiring manager, give me the toughest 2 skills. If they have those, they probably got everything else. They're just the critical ones. Then I look for the achiever pattern. For a software developer, it would probably be a white paper. They spoke at a conference. I could put the name of the conference. I probably might put the word patent, but every single job has things that candidates put on their LinkedIn profile or resume that would indicate they're in the top half or top peer of their peer group. For a lot of technical people, it could be teach, mentor, coach, taught, advise. I mean, so you start thinking, what words do these people put on here that would be logical of what they've done with their skills and have some kind of public recognition from being good at it? So I have to have those 2 things. If they're performance qualified and achiever pattern, high probability the hiring manager would interview the candidate. Now, when I do a phone screen, I've got to prove those things. So the hiring manager said, yeah, I've got to meet this person. But I also, why would I want to meet a person I couldn't convince should take this job? So my firm made thousands, maybe hundreds, certainly 1,500 placements. We always said, hey, this person's got to be recruitable. Would this person see the job as a career move? So now I'm starting to dissect their resume a little bit. Obviously, if I can offer slightly bigger title, maybe put them on a faster growth path, maybe I would find someone who is not looking but should be looking. Hey, you've been doing a job 2 or 3 years. I can put them on a faster growth path so I can see the industry they're in. They're doing similar work. So I spend a lot of time pre-qualifying the people I reach out to. And then I put a marketing campaign to make sure I get these people into play. So if I get 12 to 15 people, I'm going to say, hey, I probably don't need, I got to talk with 10 of them. I got to recruit a few of them. I got to convince them, hey, this makes good career sense. So this is where I'm going here, guys, in terms of how I use a business process like performance-based hiring, intelligent AI, and recruiting process, which really starts on the phone to make these things happen. So let me kind of define how I switch to this performance qualified job description. But if does anybody ask, I don't mind you asking questions real time. I'm not going to answer them all, but I would like Sachin to at least review them and say, is there anything that if you want to ask a question, we're going to have time towards the end to ask specific questions to both Sachin and I. But if you have anything, don't hesitate to ask a question as we go along here. And I will stop. So Sachin, any questions come in yet? And probably not. Because...
Hey, Lou, we do have a question. So there's a question that is, how do recruiters get hiring managers on board with performance-based hiring integrated process? So how do they create that buy-in within the organization?
Sometimes I just show them that candidates versus great hires chart, and managers say, and 50% of managers say, oh, that's pretty good. How do I do it? Part of it is this thing I'm going to show right now. So let me do this. Let me show you how an example of a performance-based job description, and then I'll answer the exact question of how do I get a hiring manager to do this? And I'll give you a couple of ideas. So it's almost like a perfect question for what I'm about to do now. So I'll kind of create a little story around it. So this was a rocket scientist for SpaceX. Now, I actually didn't talk to the hiring manager for this job, but SpaceX in Southern California, they're the ones that's Elon Musk's company that tends to puts satellites in orbit and recovers the rocket. So the job, and this was a real job. Now, I summarized it, which was kind of an odd job because it had electromechanical software all embedded in it. So the job actually said 3 years of C++ plus Python. Had that. It also said BS computer science and an MS electrical engineering, which was odd, but this is a real job. It then said mechanical controls and robotics, which is actually a mechanical engineer. I said, oh my gosh, this is a weird job. Then it said configuration management, which is really keeping the design spec tight and making sure everybody who's involved knows what the spec is. Then it had a list of, well, one of them was excellent communication skills, results oriented, but not untypical. Job descriptions list a lot of things that people want the person to have. So I go to the hiring manager. Now, frequently I didn't do it in this case, but I'll make believe I did it. I go to the hiring manager and says, this is not a job description. This is a person description. A person has skills and competencies. A job has things a person needs to do. So let's put the person description in the parking lot. What do you want this person to do? In fact, what would this person need to do to be successful? So the first pass was, I call it the basic KPOs, key performance objectives. So the manager says, well, they got to update the antenna tracking system. When the rocket takes off, we're tracking this person throughout the total flight. And if we lose the rocket at any given point in time or a little bit of noise, we'll never recover it in a little 100 by 100 square foot platform somewhere in the ocean. So I said, okay, that's what they do. What would they do first? Well, they got to understand the pre-launch protocols, all the stuff that goes on when they launch the thing. Okay, what's caused the problem? Well, the problem is vibration. When those antennas are tracking the rocket, it vibrates and we lose. I mean, we only lose it by tenths of 100ths of degrees. But when you put that back on the platform 100 by 100, it will miss the platform. So we got to get that right. And then they got to coordinate the design changes with the contractor. So I said, what does excellent communication look like? And why do they have configuration management? And that was the reason. Oh, they got to coordinate the design changes with the buyer, which is whoever it is. Could be the satellite company or the government, whatever. It doesn't matter. I said, okay, but that's a good job. I certainly understand it. But what would make it a great job? Why would someone want it? Why is this an important job? You want the top half person or top third person. Oh, we got to make this a top third job. I said, so why is this a big job? I said, this is real big. This person is going to lead the entire hardware software redesign effort, and they got to eliminate vibration in 1 year. I said, that's a pretty big job. Now, I could have spent an hour going through this, but I always say that. What is the big things this person needs to do? I said, then what would the person do first? First, well, they probably conduct root cause analysis to figure out what the cause of the problem is. And then they probably come up with 3 or 4 different options to figure that out. Then they do a cost trade-off analysis to figure out the best ones. Then they would put a plan together, get that plan approved, get the budget for it, build a team to do it, and then do it. And any design changes, they have to negotiate with the contractor because price is going to change. I got it. I understand the job. Now, I don't really understand that job, and I just made this part up. But I suspect I'm pretty close. Now, if I'm going out to talk to candidates and I can explain this job, how could you possibly interview a candidate properly if you don't know that? Number 2, how could you possibly convince a person that your job is a great job? So now I've got to talk to candidates in the phone screen. First, I got to get them attracted, and I can attract people in with that job. That's a good job for the right people. So I have to find people who are performance qualified for that job, have the achiever pattern on their resume, and would see the job as a career move. But if you don't know the job, you can't do any of those things. You just box checking skills. So to me, and I tell hiring managers, your recruiters are your sales reps. If they don't know the job at that level, what I just defined here, you're not seeing the best people. And HackerEarth has got all the best people. But how do you use HackerEarth to recruit and hire those people is what makes sense. Getting all the people is great, but hiring them is the end game is not seeing people or sourcing. The end game is getting those people hired and staying on the job and performing at peak levels. It's not the list of candidates. So here's what I do. I talk hiring managers into doing, not having. What does the person need to do? Let's have a job description, not a person description. I pre-select strong people, have the achiever pattern, would see the job as a career move, and have some critical skills. Number 3, I get on the phone. Hey, would you be open to have a conversation if this job represented a good career move? Well, what's the compensation? Well, it doesn't matter what we pay you. Let's see if it's a career move first. And if the compensation, then we'll see if the compensation fits. As a recruiter, you got to be able to overcome every single objection you hear. I'm only dealing with 10 or 12 people, but they're good people. Now, just as a sales spot, we've developed live and online and self-paced training that does everything I just said here. And it's relatively It's not relevant. It is inexpensive to do given the impact you're going to do it. Then I conduct what I call discovery with a candidate. I've got to find a candidate who would see this job as a true career opportunity. So that's the kind of concept. Let me stop there. But first off, the person who asked the question, that's how I get hiring managers convinced to do this. So Sachin, any other questions with respect to that? Or if not, I'll give you a tip when a hiring manager doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, we don't have any other questions right now, so probably we'll have them towards the end.
Okay, so I would say when I show the chart of great hires versus great candidates, most people say, okay, you got me interested. How do you do it? Then I go through this conversation that I just did here. But a lot of people say, well, I don't know. I still want all those skills. And some people fight that. Engineering tends to fight it more than others because they're so skills-based mentality. But even at this point in time, I say, okay, let me do this, hiring manager. What I'll do is I'll find you a few candidates who have all the skills you want. And then I'll find you a few people who can do this work. I will not compromise on that work. They have to be able to lead this project. And they'll probably have a different mix of skills and experiences than what you have in your job description. And you wouldn't have seen them because they have to have enough skills to do the work. I just don't know it's 3 years or 10 years or 4 years. I don't know if they need a BS computer science or a master in mechanical engineering. Who cares? They got to do this work. And they will have exactly the skills needed if necessary. And let me judge communication skills by their ability, not how they talk in the interview, but how I want to get examples of where they've actually negotiated complex pricing with some contractor. That will be determination whether I personally like their communication skills. It's immaterial. They've got to be able to do this work and communicate with whomever they have to. And that's how I get hiring managers to agree. I'll do an A versus B test, and I have to do that 25% of the time, but 75% of the time they'll say, yeah, that makes sense. They buy into the logic. So that's the complete answer to that question. So here's another way I do it with hiring managers to get them started. Sometimes I start with this slide in methodology, and sometimes I end my program with them. Here's how we're going to assess candidates. But it reinforces the idea we're going to focus on the work that needs to be done, not the skills needed to do the work. So the first step is, well, up here in the upper right, I have what I call my hiring formula for success. If anybody's interested, I'll give you some more details, but nonetheless, it's ability to do the work. I have to be able to do the work in relationship to fit. So those 4 dots in relationship to fit with the company, fit with the team, fit with the culture, fit with the pace, fit with the resources, fit with the hiring manager. They got to fit. So it's ability in relationship to fit drives motivation. And because motivation is so important, we square it. Because you can have people who can do the work but don't want to do the work, and they're not motivated. On the other hand, they can do the work, they like the work, but they don't like the hiring manager and they're not motivated. So the fit's real critical. That equals results. So our whole assessment, we have a whole series of interview guides to assess all of those factors. But it all comes down to this scorecard. So I'm at the end of let's assume I had a 2-hour session training managers on how to hire. They went through our self-paced class. I said, let me ask you this question. As a recruiter, if I found a candidate who had a track record of doing work that you need done, we've just defined the work, in this case for the rocket scientists, lead the launch of this new platform, would you at least see a person from me? Don't even say hi. Would you at least see a person who had a track record of doing comparable work? And most managers, well, I see them. I mean, at least I get some nodding, not a lot, but at least I get it. I said, let me kind of add another to it. What if I find a person who has solved problems just like you've had in a elegant and reasonable and a logical format? They're just really super smart, and they have a track record of solving, not only delivering results, but also solving problems like you have. Oh, I'd probably see that person. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I said, well, I'm not there. What if I can also prove to you that this person's in the top half or top third or top quartile of their peer group? Would absolutely raise the talent bar. I'll prove that to you. Oh, I'd probably hire that person. I said, no, I just want you, would you see the person? And they said, oh, I absolutely see the person. I mean, I get 95% of the people agreeing at this step. I said, we're still not there yet. What if, in addition to all that, this person has worked in a with similar kinds of people, dealt with similar kinds of people, been on cross-functional teams with similar kind of people, and has managed projects successfully just like you need done. The guy says, of course I would see that person. You got me convinced. I said, but I want to prove something else to you. I guarantee that the person who can do all this stuff will probably have a different mix of skills and experience than you have in your job description. And I'm constantly trying to get people off skills to focus on performance. And managers always want to go back to skills-based job descriptions. That's why they're still listed, skills-based job descriptions. I go to performance-based job descriptions. And they said, oh, you're right. I'm convinced. I'll see. Let's do it. So this is the other way I convince hiring managers to buy into this concept. I said, but we're not there yet. We have a candidate, the hiring formula. Now we just have ability. We don't have fit yet. We got to demonstrate the fit factors. The first fit, they got to fit with the culture. In many ways, a proxy for the culture is the pace of the organization, the decision-making process, the professionalism of the organization. That's a pretty good proxy for cultural fit. But managerial fit is your style. If they got to work with you, I mean, half the culture, or maybe 2/3 of culture, is the day-to-day involvement with the team and the hiring manager. And if there's a clash there, it's going to fall apart. So we got to discuss that's got to be a critical part of the fit factors. The candidate has to be intrinsically motivated to do that work. Just because they can do it doesn't mean they want to do it. And I think we've all met people as an engineer, after you master the concept, you want to manage a group of people. You don't necessarily want to just do the same coding design. I happen to have a mechanical engineering degree, and once I designed my first product, I never wanted to do it again, even though I could do it. I wanted to manage groups of people and more complex projects and implement stuff. But everybody is like that. Once you've done it, you don't always want to do it. So you got to get at what motivates this person to excel, and does the job provide that? And they say, you're right, 100%. I said, but now could be the deal breaker. If you want to hire a person that's got all of that in the top half, top third of their peer group, you have to give them a 30% increase. And they say, oh gosh, stone silence. But I say, here's the trick. It's not money. It's a 30% non-monetary increase. Monetary increase, and they said, what does that mean? I said, when you talk to a candidate, you got to give them some job. So if I'm talking with a candidate, I said, this job, let's assume a candidate says to me, Lou, what's the compensation? And I say, let's first see if it's a career move or not. And they say, well, what's a career move? I said, well, in my mind, a career move has got to give you at least a 30% non-monetary increase. That consists of some stretch, meaning a bigger job. Could be 5 or 10% bigger job. A job that's more important, has got more impact. That could be another 5 or 10%. A mix of more satisfying work could be another 5 or 10%. And all of that has to be driven on a growth rate that you get you continually. We can keep that going year after year. That's another 5 or 10%. That gets me 30 to 40%. In my mind, you as a candidate can't take a job any less than a 30% non-monetary increase. And you, the hiring manager, you have to offer that 30% non-monetary increase. And if you have a best career growth pattern, you'll be able to negotiate with people not by offering the most compensation, by offering the best job, the best career pattern. Now, if you're in the bottom quartile of your compensation, you're not going to hire that person. But if you're in the top, if you're above the median, in the top 30, 40% of your peer group in terms of competitive salaries, you will hire that person by offering the best career move. If you're definitely in the bottom half or bottom third, you better offer a 50% non-monetary increase where they can regain all of that by being promoted in a year from now. So to me, this is the process I recommend. Let me so any questions there, Sachin, on this?
Yeah, Lou. So we do have a question which says, just a second. It says, how will performance-based hiring be efficient in a talent surplus market? That is, if you're a top brand in a talent surplus market, how will you get a buy-in from CHRO and business? And also, if you are into a field like advertising, sales, and journalism, where most of the performance is environment dependent, how will you get a buy-in for that?
I guess I didn't hear the first part, and I wish I could see the question because I don't quite understand that specific question. So maybe you could cut and paste it so I can see it, or maybe you're showing me did you make me an organizer here? Yes, you did. So let me look at that question specifically. Thank you. Let me It must be towards the bottom, right? I don't know which one it is though.
Yeah, it says how will performance-based hiring be efficient in a talent surplus market?
Well, there's oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, so let me that's a great, God, somebody must have seen this chart. I don't think there's a talent. So let me kind of go this way. That's an interesting question because it's the slide I wasn't going to show, but let's put it in there for the people you're hiring. So I'll answer it again with not just words, but I'll kind of prove something out here to you. For the talent, I'd like everyone to put this in here. In your current talent market, is there a surplus of great people who are performance qualified and would raise the talent bar? Is there a surplus of those people? So if you could just say yes or no, that would be key. So now I'll just look at your answers coming in. Is there a surplus? So I have a no and a no. Everyone, for the people you're hiring, is there a surplus of great talent or a surplus scarcity? So there's not a surplus. Now I know that somebody who asked this question, only 2 people said it. No, I guess there's more people saying. So everybody says no. So let me kind of think it from a sourcing standpoint and describe it. In most cases, somehow I get in situations where there's always a scarcity, so it's always hard. But when you think about the hiring process, so again, I'm going to give you my 4 buckets. If you want a great hire at the end, you got to start with a great job, you got to define it, you got to find the people, you got to conduct the interview, you got to close the deal. But when you think about hiring, there's 4 big buckets of hiring. There's the having bucket, which is what most people put on the skills-based job description. There's the getting bucket, which is what candidates get on the day they start, a title, a comp, a location. Now, generally speaking, managers focus too much on having. Recruiters box check when they get a candidate on the phone, they box check the skills and then discuss, hey, would you be interested in about getting a job? And the candidate says, what's the money? What's the title? So a lot of decisions are made in that first phone call based on what they get. But when you think about a great hire, if they don't opt out, they're going to make a judgment based on what they're going to be doing. Is this job something I want to do? And can I become something better? So the doing and the becoming is what I'm going to be doing the first year and what I could become, which is the 30% solution. Do I get there? But when you think about most hiring processes, they assume there's a surplus. They assume that, now, Sachin says there's 2 million people on HackerEarth, and I suspect there's probably 2 million people. But I suspect the top 25% of those 2 million people already have a great job. I don't really care that they have a great job. I'm going to give them a better job. So I'm going after top people because I know that if I get them high, if I can find them and recruit them, the hiring manager would want to hire them and they'll be top performers in my company. So I'm a recruiter. I go after the best people. I'm not into filling jobs. But most people, and you look at most ATS system is, hey, put your job description down, negotiate the doing, and they don't even write down what the doing and becoming is. That's a left to right scarcity model. Weed out the weak and you hire the best people who apply. I don't go that way. I go right to left. Let's define what a person can do and become. I'm going to find a few people who can do and become that, and I'm going to convince them that it doesn't matter what they get in terms of making a career decision. It matters what they do and become. And from a hiring manager, if they can do and become this work, they have exactly the skills needed. And if they can do and become this work, what they get on the start date, it doesn't even matter. But that's recruiting. So when a candidate says to me, what's the compensation? But here's why, let me just kind of, and then I'll see if this is a good enough answer to the question. I ask this question to candidates when I finally get them on the phone. Would you be open to explore a situation if it were clearly superior to what you're doing today? Once I get them on the phone, they go, of course. That's why I want to talk to you. They said, well, what's the compensation? I said, well, let's be real frank. If it's not a career move, it doesn't matter what we pay you. Let's first see if it's a career move. Well, it makes good sense. What's a career move? I got to give you at least a 30% non-monetary increase. And I describe it. Let me just review your LinkedIn profile, see if we can get there. Now, if I can get there, the salary says, now, when I first talk to a candidate, the salary is always number 1. Location's number 2. When I go through the doing and becoming in a conversation, I move salary to the, as long as I'm fair, I'll be able to close the deal. If I'm in the bottom, if I'm so far apart, I can't get it. But if I'm within 5 or 10%, 15, it's a done deal. I'll get there. Location is a big difference. I got to get probably a 50% increase. But when a candidate sees this job as a true career move, they start telling me why this is a great job. And as far as I'm concerned, recruiting isn't you selling the candidate. It's getting the candidate to realize this is the best career move and far better than what they're doing today and far better than the other opportunities. That's what performance-based hiring is. It's not about efficiency, it's about quality of hire. Now, I've created this learning platform that Sachin said. I truly believe that everything comes together in the phone screen. And it's cheap. I mean, it's nothing to it. I'm not even going to get into the money here, but you can see it there. Here's what I would suggest, and this is my offer to you guys. Over the next 6 weeks, everybody who signs up for the phone screen, and I'd like to get a recruiter and a hiring manager in partnership to go through it together. We're going to put it's a self-paced class, the last 45 minutes. We're going to have a bunch of coaching sessions that go along with it. You will be able to master 90% of what I just defined here. We had a president of a company, a private equity firm, went through the phone screen over the weekend. He called us this morning and says, unbelievable. He said, I took the course over the weekend. I learned it. Took me 45 minutes. I interviewed 2 candidates yesterday, and I'm having every single manager in my company take that phone screen. It was the difference maker. So that's the deal. You can go to info@performance-based hiring to find it, or lms.performancebasedhiring.com will get you there. So let me just end this with some quick comments and then open it up to any questions you've got. I don't like to deal with candidates who aren't going to get hired. I don't like to deal with candidates who can't give me good referrals. So I had this simple sourcing rule: fish where the big fish hang out. Why would I talk to anybody who's not going to help me? I'm a recruiter. I'll go after the toughest people and convince them if my job's a career move, I will close that person. If it's not a great career move, fine. I'm going to connect with that person. That person will know that I know the job, know that I understand how to interview, and give me great referrals, because I can go on LinkedIn and get referrals. And there'll be a lot of people in HackerEarth who are in that platform. Hire for success, not for skills. Success is more than skills, but use HackerEarth to find a few critical skills, look at their resumes, see which ones look like they truly have the achiever pattern and would see the job as a career move. That's how you fish. That's how you hire great people. Performance qualified, achiever pattern, and clear career move. You do those every single time in combination with a phone screen, you will be hiring great people every time. HackerEarth is the source of some of those great people, but it's what you do with that source that will make you successful or not. Good luck hiring great people every time. Now open it up to any questions you want, or challenges, or thoughts, or processes. So
Lou, there's a question that asks, not everyone is looking for a career move. Some people want intangibles like flexibility, exciting role, more meaningful mission, shorter commute, etc. So how do we deal with such candidates?
Say that again. Somehow I didn't get that again. And it's only, my hearing is that as I get older, my hearing is going down. So again, what was the question, Sachin?
The question is, not everyone is looking for a career move. Some people want intangibles like flexibility, exciting role, shorter commute. So what do you do in such a situation?
Well, that is a career move. I mean, well, you just defined for that person. So let me go back probably 15 years ago. I was working with a big giant insurance company. They had 5,000 people in a call center. And I just said, so I actually wanted to talk to people. Who are the top performing people answering inbound phone calls about insurance questions? Why do they do it? Well, they did it because it was close to home, had good benefits. They could work structured hours and be home in time to have their children arrive from elementary school. I said, fine, that's what it is. So what I do is I just say, if there's anybody who likes this, this last week we're in a course with government contractors. I said, well, they're contractors. It's not a career move. I said, well, they obviously like it. Let's talk to some contractors, find out what the best contractors, why they do the job. And it turned out, now I don't have all the answers, but we've done it before. They like the flexibility. They like to be on different projects. They like the security of working on state-of-the-art projects. Well, to them, that's what their career move is. I don't define career move in my mind, but if I look at that 30%, For contractors, it's I want a mix of more satisfying work. I like to be pushing the envelope a little bit on growth, but if I want the mix of projects I'm working on, I want it to be different, and I want to work with people I like to work with. That's fine. Then that's my messaging to go after that. So I think whatever it is, it's usually different, but I just encapsulate that the umbrella of that's a career move for that specific person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lou, so guys, we are open for questions. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. Lou's there for the next couple of minutes to answer those. And if you have any questions directed at HackerEarth, I'll be happy to take them up.
And Surajit says he did have a surplus market. I still would say in a surplus market, because I think for those insurance companies, Surajit, it was a surplus, but we defined ahead of time what a top performer would likely want and how to screen on those things. But it wasn't skills, it was on, I guess they're intangibles. I don't think they're intangibles. To me, I've defined them, so they're not precise. You got to kind of infer and use a proxy to get at them. Hey, probably somebody who's been, wants a structured job. They have perfect attendance, and that was really one of the things we looked at was attendance and what is their motivation for taking these jobs. So we still created messages around what the best people in that group wanted to have. And in fact, it was interesting because the hiring managers in that call center, I remember now, it was 15 years ago, they didn't want this HR initiative. But I just asked, is there a difference between the top third of the people? They said, we only fire 10% of the people. I said, well, the 90% of the top third, which is 30%, better than the bottom third, even though you retained them. I said, absolutely. So I said, well, tell me what the top third looks like. And we'll find people like that, and we'll attract people based on meeting the top third criteria. So that's how we did it in the surplus market. So it works in both cases.
Thanks for the answer, Lou. So before I take up the next question, I wanted to announce that we'll be running a poll. So guys, please respond to the poll so that we can get feedback and make it better for the next time. So Lou, the next question is, how long should a job description really be?
How long should a job description really be? I guess I'll give you a stupid answer, which will aggravate everybody. Long enough to attract the right people. Most of mine are, I'm going to say 3 or 4 paragraphs. They list no skills. They describe the intrinsic motivator for the candidate, why this is a great job. They define some of the projects that the person needs to have. They tell it and weave it in a story of why that job's important. And they say, let's have a conversation. So I don't want people necessarily to apply. I know we get them to apply, but I'd like to tell stories with messages and what they'll be doing. Hey, we need someone to design this circuit to do this. I would never say I might say you probably have 2 to 3 years experience, but more important is this, you're going to be designing a circuit to do A, B, and C. So we have a whole course on how to write creative advertising, but that's the essence of it.
There's another question so one of the persons has asked if you could share the website for the phone screen course.
I have it right here. I just put it up there.
Okay.
It should be on the screen, I think, right?
Yep. Yeah, you can keep it there.
Still sharing my page. It's right there. It's at the bottom of this page.
So another question is, is the process you recommend different for high volume roles like co-op and new graduates, where typically phone screens are hard to do with resources at hand?
That's really, I think, I can't say they're exactly the same, so that would be unfair. But we certainly have done it for high volume sales positions. We helped the YMCA hire 100,000 camp counselors one year. The idea of writing compelling messages and understanding the work is universal. I don't care if you're hiring, if you want a top person, you got to describe why. You got to understand the people. How you actually execute that high volume process would be different. I know if you're in, Sachin knows that because you're in the West Coast, we have a burger chain on the West Coast of the United States called In-N-Out Burger. I worked with them about 20 years ago when they were expanding from 20 restaurants to 300 restaurants, fast food that sells hamburgers, and we created a scripted interview where high school kids would come and line up to work at the place. So it was high volume, and it was a 30-minute. That's how they applied. They just applied and they lined up, and we interviewed them, and we screened them based on it. So it wasn't a phone screen, but it was kind of similar. At some point in time, you still have to screen people. Obviously, you'd probably want to develop some kind of knockout questions, some other questions to screen it down to 15 or 20 people. But the concepts are the same, but the execution would certainly be different.
So there's a question for HackerEarth, Lou. I'll be taking that. One is how can the platform be applied for non-technical roles? So Lou, you've spoken time and again about a phone screen. So one of the products that we have allows recruiters to conduct phone screens, but using video, real-time code editor, or even if you don't want the candidates to write code, even if it's a non-technical role, you could ask them to build case studies, and you could see it in real time. So first, it can be used for the phone screens. And the second is the assessment platform can also be used for conducting tests which are for non-technical roles. So there are skills, there are performance-based indicators that you want to look at when you're trying to hire any candidate. And some of those can be mapped onto a test that can be conducted through HackerEarth. And the second question is, we are based in Canada. Does HackerEarth have candidates from Canada? Yes, we do. So if you're interested, we're happy to talk post the webinar is done. So Lou, I'll see if there are any more questions for you. Do you want to take one? Yeah.
I'm reading this one. It says, when performance is more important than skills, what are the first things to be addressed as a recruiter?
Correct.
Well, I think that if, in my mind, and again, that's hard to answer, I'm not 100% sure the context of the question, but as a recruiter, what I do is when I interview the hiring manager, I say, what does this person need to do to be successful? So I understand it's an outcome. When I interview, so let me kind of give the bookend. When I'm first talking with a candidate, I generally don't have the technical skills to assess that person's technical competency. However, I use what I call the Sherlock Holmes technique. As I talk to a technical person, I don't care if it's an accountant, an engineer, anything. I said, what kind of projects were you assigned when you just started with the company? And typically, engineers, I don't care who they are, if they're really good, they're assigned stretch projects. Same thing for accountants. They're given more important projects with more important clients. Salespeople, they're given tougher clients to handle. So I just look at, as a recruiter, I make an inference that this person is obviously technical competent based on how others assign this person work. And if that work was a stretch project, if that work was menial or average or below what a person with that level of experience doing. And if I see that person constantly being assigned stretch projects at multiple companies, I know the person's a quick learner, and other people have recognized that person as a high achiever. And 95% of the time, I'm right using that Sherlock Holmes inference approach as opposed to assessing technical skills. And then when the technical skills person says, wow, this person's brilliant, they can handle anything. Well, I didn't figure that out. I just looked at the evidence that indicates that. So I'm not positive that's the answer to your question, but it's still a good answer for something anyway.
Probably we could take one last question. Is that okay?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So the question is, do you see the approach adopted in executive recruitment versus pure technical roles? I'm not sure if it's directed at you or me.
I think we both can answer. What would you say, Sachin? And then I'll give you my take.
Yeah, so I think the approach is independent of the kind of roles, because you want to hire people-based performance across the roles. You want to hire great candidates across the roles. So I wouldn't say that it's fit for one. That's my opinion. I may, you may have a different one, but my take is that it's applicable to both.
I'd say I 100% agree with you. I mean, let's be real frank. Who get hired for a pure technical role? Pure technical roles mean you don't talk to people, you don't talk to marketing, you don't talk to operations or manufacturing or a delivery or salespeople. So
Absolutely
to me, there's
not.
no really technical role unless you're working in a box in a cube and you don't talk to anybody. So I 100% agree with you.
Okay.
A technical role, if the person's good, they start to develop cross-functionally and can understand it so they can adapt their technical skills, understanding the real user needs. So that's how I see it.
Sounds good. I
We've
think we've
applied it for all roles. Sorry, go on. I apologize for it.
no problem. Yeah, I think we've top of the hour now, so we can probably end the webinar. And if there are any more questions, and this is for the audience, if there are questions that we could not answer in real time, happy to take up these questions later. So you could email them to us, and we'll be happy to respond to them. Thanks a lot, Lou, for being on the webinar. Really appreciate you taking our time. I'm sure the audience would have enjoyed listening to you.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully we can work together somehow in the future. Thanks very much, Sachin, and for hosting this program. It was a lot of fun for me, too. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Lou. Bye-bye.